Hey there, Scorpio. How you doing? So this is your 2-week forecast, taking you from the new moon in Taurus on the 27th of April, right the way through to the full moon in Scorpio on the 12th of May. Now, if you've been listening to this channel before, welcome back. You'd have probably heard over the last couple of months that there've been some really epic configurations and planetary aspects. In particular, we've got a lot of focus around the last degrees of Pisces and the beginning of Aries. So there's been a real sort of intense, highly focused period of time. Where we're coming into now, this is all starting to ease off. And so we're not seeing quite so much as, like the sort of internal decision making that's been going on in the previous forecasts. However, the actual new moon and the day of the full moon are really highly charged days. So yeah, we are let off the hook a little bit, but we're still going through some changes. And so what I want to do is pace you through this forecast by looking at 3 particular charts, taking you from the beginning, the middle, and the end, really giving you a sense of how you can manage these energies to the absolute best that you can. If you're new to this channel, hi, my name's Louisa Tanner Munson, and yeah, hopefully I'll be your guide here to help you find a little bit of space in how you manage these aspects. I often find that, or I found a lot in the past, that when I was learning astrology, there was a lot of things like, if you've got your moon in Pisces, you're going to be an alcoholic, or if the sun is going through the 7th house, this is what's going to happen. And I find that a little fatalistic. And so I try and practice astrology in such a way that you can get some choice or a feeling of space from what's going on. So I'm looking for a sense of possibility, and that's what I'm hoping to deliver to you today. So anyway, Scorpio, whether you have got your sun in Scorpio or you've got your rising sign in Scorpio, I think this will be a really good message for you. By the way, if your rising sign is in another sign, don't forget to check that one out too. So let's bring up my trusty slides and see what comes up. So as ever, the first thing I want to do is just sort of describe the energy during the new moon to the full moon. So essentially, it appears that the moon is growing. It's growing from nothing. It's growing from that darkness. And at the end of this 2-week period, we're going to have this lovely, bright, fully illuminated moon. Now, of course, the moon's not actually growing. That's not true at all. It's the same size throughout this whole period. However, our perception of it is that, it's covered in dark, and at the end of this, it's in light. So it's like dark to light. And midway through, you get this amazing bit, sort of a week in, where it's half illuminated and half in the shadows. And so this first week, when it's more dark, this is relating to a deeper intuition, a time when we have to take a little bit more care of ourselves. We're tuning in to find our answers. Nothing is illuminated at this point. So we have to self-illuminate. We have to find the answers from within, and with the new moon, it's as if everything has been wiped clean, like we have a clean slate. In the darkness, we might have to go deep inside and find out what we really, really care about. And then from that place of, I really care about this, this is really important to me, we sow a seed in this blank energy, like in this clean space. And then over the first week in particular, what we're doing is we're finding ways to feel about the thing we're sowing seeds for. So, it's also quite a good time to actually sow real seeds and watch them grow. But in the beginning, when you sow seeds, you don't see the plants come up straight away. You have to wait for some of the magic of the earth and the weather. We never know if our seeds are actually going to show up or not. And so we have to play a little waiting game. And in this first week of the waxing moon phase, where the moon is gradually getting bigger and bigger, we have to use a lot of faith. We tune in, we get into the feeling of how good it will be to grow that plant or that idea or that concept or whatever it is you're putting your attention to. But there's a lot of faith in there. And then when we get to the midpoint, we're asked to take action. And around that time, we usually get some deep inspiration, but also a nudge externally. And so at this point, as it gets lighter and lighter, everything is becoming a lot more externalized and less internalized. So you get nudges from the universe, from friends. You might be out in town and something catches your eye, and you might ask yourself, what is the message of that? Why has that happened? But life is gathering pace, and it comes up in speed. And then as we come to the time of the full moon, this is like a full pregnant belly. You are ready for the birthing. You're ready for the release of the idea, or whatever it is that you've been growing. But what really occurs to me at the time of the full moon is we are receiving the outcome of where our internal focus has been. So you often find that around the time, in particular with me, around the time of the full moon, I get really quite overwhelmed. I'm very, very aware of all of these things, highly illuminated around me, and I can find it a little bit bewildering, but it's almost like a whirlwind. Lots of things are kind of whipping up into your life. So it's a very sort of exciting time, a very like it's good for manifestation, but you also need to keep your head. You can really get out of your emotional center. So it's something to watch out for. So, we're coming from this very calm place. And then as we come to the full moon, everything is raging and big and can really materialize. Now, if we look at this from the perspective of the 2 weeks, now I've said the 2 moons in particular are, highly charged, and then the rest is kind of gentle, and I think really working for us in a great way. So you can see, this is pretty much a 2-week forecast. The midpoint is again on a Sunday, like the new moon, and the full moon is in the early hours of Monday. This is in a London time zone. If you're in America, you might actually find that the full moon does actually occur on the 11th of May. Anyway, these 2 full moons, I'll be telling you or sharing my thoughts about those in a second when I bring up the charts. But midway through, this first week is, I think, more about our feelings. Venus is going into Aries. And so how we relate to people, we're relating to the people in our lives. We're getting a lot more direct, a lot more positive. Venus isn't very happy in Aries, but Aries, the energy of Aries does make Venus a little bit pushy. We might be a bit more sexual. We might be a bit more flirty. We might be a bit more sassy, for sure, in how we're relating to other people. But what really occurs to me is you're ready to take action about something you care about. And that I think is helpful. Venus has been in the sign of Pisces, where we've been kind of waiting for the right time and being very gentle with ourselves. But now it's time to, move forwards a little bit. A couple of days later, the Venus makes another change, or her energy is shifting a little bit. And so she's coming into this exact conjunction with Neptune in the sign of Aries. Now, Venus has had 2 conjunctions with Neptune this year. Normally it's 1 a year. And for the last 13, 14 years, all of the Venus and Neptune conjunctions have happened in the sign of Pisces, which is really dreamy. Like Venus is about love and flow and generosity and kindness and compassion. And Neptune is about and creativity as well. And Neptune is a higher version of it, almost like a celestial version of the loving manifestations and the loving flow. And so these 2 coming together, I think of as being like a fairy godmother's like making a wish, or a kindly grandmother kissing you on the forehead. It feels really good and really lucky, like you're really protected. Now, what I like about this is the first one in the sign of Aries, and it's really sowing the seeds of taking action about our biggest and most personal and most heart-driven goals. So if you've got something that you really want to bring out, and to do something about, something really beautiful that you'd like to manifest, this is such a strong time to take action to manifest one of your dreams. Now, in the second week, we've got another planetary change. That's Mercury going into Taurus. But we've got these lovely stepping stones early on. On the 5th, we've got Mercury in a sextile to Jupiter. I think this energy is really it's like a stepping stone, bridging the gap, where we feel disconnected and cut off from people socially. I really think Mercury and Jupiter are going to expand and help us to connect with people in quite a light-hearted way. I see this as being really light-hearted and helpful, really, really collaborative. And then the following day, we've got Venus in a sextile to Pluto. Now, not so much collaborative as it is really quite passionate. There are strong, strong feelings. To me, it feels like with love can conquer all. So I think these two energies on the 5th and the 6th are really potent, and it's followed on the 7th by Mercury in a conjunction with Chiron, where we really do get to the bottom of what's been ailing us. If there's something on our mind that we've not been able to share, the time is coming for us to really purge and to get some of the healing energies of being transparent. And that is really they're the main energies I would point out. So I'm going to bring up the 3 main charts: the new moon, the midpoint, and the full moon. But just before I do, I want to say thank you to everybody who supports this channel in the variety of ways that you do it. I absolutely love and adore your help and support. And, some of you support me by buying me a coffee and giving me a donation. And all the links for that, if you want to do that, are down below. But I know some of you are also members of my Feel Good Astrology membership, my community. And again, I really thank and honor you for your contributions. It really, really helps. And hopefully you're getting something back from the membership as well. So thank you, everyone who contributes in one way or another. You're really helping me to do what I love to do. God bless you. So let's have a look at these 3 charts then. So we've got the new moon in Taurus, the first quarter moon phase, and by this time the moon has moved from here right the way to the top of your chart. And then finally we've got the full moon in Scorpio, which obviously is in your sign. So this is a big one for you. So what I'm going to do is pace you through it, because the first one, this new moon in Taurus, is in your 7th house, which is all about the people in your life. And then if I go across, the full moon is in your 1st house. So we've got like a 1st and 7th house polarity. So this is everything about you. This is everything about them. Everyone outside of yourself is really represented by the 7th house. So it's you, them, you, your partner, you, the projections you put on your partner, and some of the projections they put on you. So this is really interesting. These houses, the 1st, the 7th, and also the 4th and the 10th, are really, really important houses for us. And the one of the biggest things that's going on, especially as we go into this forecast period between the 27th and the 12th of May, what we've got here is this opposition between your 2 ruling planets. So whether you're a Scorpio ascendant or the Scorpio sun, who knows how you're looking at this from, but the perspective. But the ruling planet or the ruling planets of Scorpio are Mars and Pluto, and they're in a very, very tight opposition, an exact opposition on the 27th across your 4th and 10th houses. So the 1st, the 4th, the 7th, and the 10th, you might realize that every 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, they actually are making a cross. And so there's and these are known as being the most important houses in our charts. These are the angular houses. These are the parts of our chart that really move us forward. So this is a very, very important 2 weeks for you. The 1st house about you, the 4th house about your home and your security, the 7th and being private, the 7th house about your relationships, and then the 10th house about your career and being public. This is a really, really important 2-week period that's I think going to be really transformational in terms of how you appear in your life. How you see yourself is really shifting. So the first thing I want to focus on is really the purpose of this new moon. What is it going to do? How is it going to serve you? So let's go a bit deeper. So this new moon is opening up new potentials in terms of your relationships. The new moon in the 7th house is always seen as really being quite beneficial. It gives us that sense of completion of one stage of life and a new start, a new start in terms of how you appear within your relationships and how you are relating to the people around you. So I like that. Now, this particular, with new moons, I'm usually looking at what they're connecting to. And at the time of this new moon, they're really just connecting to both Mars and Pluto, making this really dynamic. This is forming what's known as a T-square, which can be quite a frustrating energy. It's not always easy, and it's very, very personal to you because of obviously it's using Mars and Pluto, this opposition between your 4th house and your 10th. So I think what this is translating as is that there's some tension in how you're being at home and what you're trying to control at home. I think wherever Pluto goes, it shows what we're afraid of, what we have fear about. Often there's a fear about security. Do you feel like you're highly exposed? Do you not feel safe at home? Do you not feel safe in your house or within your family? Pluto often shows the lengths that you'll go to feel safe, feel secure, and feel like you're nestled and that nothing can go wrong. And so Pluto here is showing where you're like needing control. It can also show someone in your family that is highly, highly controlling. And so again, the mechanisms of control are playing out at home. Now up here, Mars is really showing your desire to live and breathe and feel free and to take action in the outer world. And so what I really get here is there's one side of you that maybe feels like it needs to be highly controlled and mechanized, and then another side of you that really feels like it wants to break off the sensation of being trapped or the sensation of being afraid. Mars up here is really strident. He's taking room, he's taking up space. He's saying, here I am, and like creating a new boundary for himself, or not necessarily a new boundary, but creating a new realm or a new kingdom for himself. Mars up here is getting ready to be quite courageous out in public. And so if you've been feeling very conflicted from needing to manage things at home versus feeling really free and magnificent and strong out in public, that's a pretty big thing. Now, it just so happens that as this is coming in, there's also the new moon. And so I do think like Sunday is giving you this sense of a new start, so that where you felt conflicted between home and the public, or your family life and your career life, where you're feeling really pulled in both directions, there's this new sense of possibility. So, I wonder, have you had complaints from the people in your life that are saying, oh, you're always out there and you're never here? To me, it just feels like there is something going on that's distracting the relationships at home. And so there is a sense of a new integration and a new start. Now, Mars and Pluto are obviously critical in this. And so I want to show a couple of other release points, that's not just through the new moon. I mean, there's this lovely release point here, Uranus, again, in the 7th house, again, about relationships. Uranus is showing changing relationships, exciting relationships, spontaneity within relationships, and a need for the highest level of consciousness in your relationships. And so when you're being fun and spontaneous and expecting change and really considering what it is to have a high level of consciousness within your relationships, that is also creating the space to feel like you can be proactive in your career and be spontaneous, but also to feel that that's transforming your home. So again, calling for freedom and a higher consciousness within your relationships helps to relieve some of this tension. Another way to relieve this tension is here. We've got Saturn and Venus and Neptune, and also the North Node in a real sort of like tight area here. This is, I think, where your creativity is meeting your productivity. Now, I mean, some of these things, I'm mentioning relationships and I'm mentioning your career here quite a bit. The interesting thing is this is more of a general reading, and I actually do two additional forecasts for my members, one about relationships and connections and the other about career and ambition. So this will be covered at a much deeper level in the following two forecasts if you want to become a member, or even just have a free trial and give it a go. But anyway, there is this sense that your creativity, your ability to create from what you feel passionate about, is meeting productivity, and that sort of little space And I don't know what it is. Is it like you've got a good idea about your life, and from that it's motivating you to take action? Something about that is working beautifully for your family, and is also uplifting you and really helping to support you in your endeavors. That sense of productive satisfaction. To me, it feels very satisfying. So, there are different ways to relieve this tension, but the tension, I think, is coming to a head on the 27th, on the time of the new moon, but with a sense of possibility. Sometimes, if you've got a boil, which, I've had a few boils in my time, you can feel it all building underneath the skin. And really what you're crying out for is just to like burst. Where is that like moment where all of a sudden, there's going to be some release. That release is coming. So if you're aware of this tension, that release is coming. And then the release is really playing out over the next 2 weeks. Now, as I go through this, like the midpoint, I think, is interesting. On the 4th, it does feel quite dramatic and you might feel quite exposed. But, midway in this forecast, this lovely area of support and strength for the Mars function. So again, that feeling of taking action, being in the open, being in the public, being in a career space, really feels like you've got a new kingdom. There's a new area, a new just a new space for you to be strong and courageous in. And it is really linked in with your feelings of satisfaction and that feeling that you're on purpose because you are working from what you're passionate about. So to me, the midpoint of this 2-week forecast, I think you're probably doing loads and really following what is coming to you via inspiration. Now, as we come to this last point, this full moon in Scorpio, the moon has come back and into your first house, very much about your body, your image. And also, when the moon comes in this part of our chart, we feel super sensitive and often quite emotional. Now, this particular full moon, now I don't know where your ascendant is or your sun is, but it's quite possible that, the full moon is going to be in a conjunction with your ascendant or your sun, which will make it really, really important to you. But this particular full moon is very energetic. Not only is Pluto and Mars still in an opposition across your 4th and 10th houses, really making you feel stretched between what's possible at home and what's possible out of the home. There is this surprising new energy, this surprising burst of energy coming from your partner or the people you're closely related to. Now, I often think that this part of our chart represents a projection screen. If this is everything to do with you and this is everything outside of you, kind of by default, it's what you're projecting onto the world. It's qualities that you see in others that you just don't see in yourself. And so you may, and Uranus is absolutely a projection screen. Uranus really shows us where we can have a surprising new level of consciousness or see something that's quite shocking and quite sudden. And the sun is really illuminating this. And so I think there could be something really quite triggering that gets illuminated, and possibly something that you're seeing in other people that you don't like or you don't associate with yourself. Is really possible around the time of the full moon in Scorpio, especially given that the moon is going to be connected most likely to your sun or your ascendant, according to which one of those is in Scorpio. But it's really possible that you're feeling a sense of projection. So if you're feeling out of sorts, if you're feeling highly emotional because the moon's in your first house, be very, very aware of what you're judging others for, and also where you're feeling judged. If you've got the good sense or the space or the facility to ignore what people are saying or just call a time out until the moon has at least gone into the sign of Sagittarius, which I think should happen around the 13th, or maybe later on in the day on the 12th. Then I think, once the moon has moved out of this situation, you'll start to feel better quite quickly, because the moon is really like a projector, and it's too close for comfort. And you really can't see like, you know, in the conversations you're likely to be having, you might notice that what your partner is saying to you is actually exactly as you feel, but the other way around. And so it's really confusing. So I would just be very careful around the judgments that you have around the time of the full moon, because you could end up building this up with this heightened emotionalism, because the moon's in your first house and it's a full moon, and it could blow up out of proportion. You know, Uranus in the seventh house can show where we come to blows and come into a bit of a split. That's why we need extra consciousness or higher consciousness. That's I think, the higher possibility for Uranus in the seventh house, because we actually see where we could break and we see beyond it, and we can see why that might happen. But in the rush of a full moon and this sun really close to Uranus, we might not be in our full sanity. And also at the time of the full moon, other people are highly charged as well. It's not just you. So I would just be really, really cautious that you don't let things get out of hand, because it might be very difficult to repair what comes up from this. Another way of looking at this, however, is that, you know, whatever is started around the 27th with this, you know, new moon here in your seventh, this new feeling of a possibility, or the understanding that you need a clearing, something needs to change, you need more space to be yourself. By the time you come to the full moon here, you really see the results of what you've already put in action, and where it's working, it's going to be even more dynamic and create even greater change for you. And so a few more things might need to be tweaked. You know, it will really give you the full vision of it, where you know what's going to work and what's not going to work. But, you know, anything that's not working is going to be shown to you. So it's just really dynamic. So yeah, if you think it would be useful to have a romance reading or a career reading, then you might consider membership. So I host my membership on school.com, which is skool.com/feel-good astrology. You get 1 week's free trial. And then if you really like it and you want to confirm it, it's $22 a month. Now, for this $22 a month, you get 4 forecasts I don't put out on YouTube to the public. They are literally just for the membership. And so every new moon, there'll be a relationship and connections forecast, and a career and ambition forecast. And then every full moon in every month, there's another relationships and connections and another career and ambition forecast. You know, so mostly you'll get 4. There will be possibly 1 month where you'll get 3 sets of 2 forecasts, because, you know, you'll have a new or full moon at the start of the month and at the end, and then one in the middle. So, you know, you could end up with 6 readings. Now, once you've, like once a month, I have a hangout as well. So, you know, if you're not just here for the extra forecast, which on their own, you know, some people just come for the forecast. But if you're after a more rich experience and you want to engage in conversations about astrology and learn a bit more about your astrology, I do a complimentary community hangout once a month over Zoom. And I invite everyone in the membership, and also invite you a few days before to give me some ideas of what you'd like to talk about. And we had one 4 nights ago now, and it was fantastic. You know, we were looking at each other's patterns to see how life-changing events really correlate to our birth chart. I really like these exercises and these kinds of things, because we really get to see how astrology works. And of course, once you can see how it works, and then you know that it works, you can start using it to you know, assist you in the ways that you want. If you're already thinking you'd like to invest in a consultation or learn with me or come to a webinar, then there's also discounts with membership too, and little extras along the way. So yeah, if that sounds like something you might consider, give it a go. Like I said, there's 1 week's free trial, and if you like it, then you can come aboard fully. So anyway, Scorpio, I really hope you have a great 2 weeks. And yeah, catch you in a couple of weeks when we talk about the full moon in Scorpio some more, and go even deeper than we have today. So anyway, lots and lots of love to you. Bye for now.